Hi YouTube. Okay, so this video is just an update of where I am with the console that I'm building. Now, what you're looking at here is basically there's been no update. I'm waiting for some parts to come to allow me to build the video processor, because at the moment, just looking at some LEDs flashing is not really very exciting and doesn't really show you anything. But what you're looking at here is I've taken the processor as you saw it before, and I've laid it out in a more logical way. So this is the CPU. This is the 65816, but it's currently configured as the 6502, so it's in emulation mode by default. And what I've done is I've got the clock here, and this is just here it is. This is just a 555 timer, and that's just feeding through at about 10 pulses a second, something like that, which you probably can't pick up on the camera, the flashing, because it's a bit too fast and you've got persistence of vision there. Now, what I did attempt to do here was build a 12 megahertz clock, but the problem is I don't have a frequency counter, so I have no idea whether or not it's working. So I've got a 12 megahertz crystal. I've set up the transistor and the capacitors how it says on the internet how to do it, but I have no idea if it's working because I have no output at the moment. So once I get the converter, and the converter is for these chips. These are so I've got 5 of them, but obviously I'll only be using one. These are the Yamaha V9958. But the pins, they're too thin, they're too close together. This is a shrink dip, so so you can't put it on the board because the pins are too close together. But I've got a converter coming, which will allow me to then put this onto a breadboard. So a breadboard SDIP converter. Once I have that, I'll be able to plug it into a monitor and actually see the output. So that way I'll know if things are working. So that's the steps. Video processor built, then I can start working on programming the CPU and having an output. This here is the RAM, and what I've done, so this is where I'm talking about laying it out in a more simple format, is that I've created a bus, and that's this board here. So this is the address. All the yellow is the address. Now by default it's 16-bit address bus, but when I enable the 16-bit part of the 65816, then it will be a 24-bit address bus. So all of these will be used up. So at the moment, 8 of these are not being used. Up here, I'll have a address decoder, which will take these 8 bits and then decode them to different things, like it would be different parts of the RAM, or it would be this other thing that I've been building, which does seem to be working, which is a serial port. So this is USB serial to a UART chip, and then these are the data cables which then go into the data bus. So then the UART can display and send information to the chip. So the idea is I'm going to create a simple program that loads from the USB, and then you can put games directly into the computer via the USB, and then that way you don't have to mess around with programming ROMs. Eventually there will be ROMs, and you'll have, well, the games will be on SD card, but for now, for just the building part of it, I'm going to be hopefully sending the games via USB. And then this blue ones is the data bus. So at the moment you can see down here these lights, and I've labelled it override there, is I've hard coded the no-op command into the data bus. So every time the CPU goes to every address, so it's counted in binary there, it's going through all the addresses, every command that comes back is the no-op command. What I'll eventually do is program probably the RAM chip with a simple program to pull the USB, and then it will then actually do something, but not until we've got something to display it on, which is the video card. So I'm hunting for a frequency frequency, not analyzer, frequency counter on eBay. I nearly got one the other night. It was going for £10, and then suddenly it went up to 20, and I was like, that's a bit too much. So I'm still hunting around for one. Once I've got one, I'll know exactly what these crystals are doing. But until then, off eBay, I've bought a frequency oscillator chip. So it looks like a crystal, but it's a bit bigger. Do I have something? I do have something here somewhere. But there it is. So this is what it will look like. It would just look like this big silver box. Now this actually is the same as this. It's just it's older, so it looks a lot bigger. But the new one looks just like this. It has the 4 pins. It has 5 volts. It'll have ground, and it will have an output pin with the actual frequency, the clock, which will then I just put directly into the CPU. So I bought one of them, so that way I don't have to worry about the frequency counter at the moment. That will be running this chip at 12 megahertz. And that's it, apart from one other thing, which is this button here. So what I've done is I've created a reset button. So when you press that, you see everything stops, and then it resets everything back to normal. Stop, resets all back to normal, you see? So I can reset it whenever I want. And how that actually works is there's a reset pin on the CPU, and what this is doing is it's holding via a pull-up resistor. It's holding the 5 volts on there, so that puts it into free running mode. But when I press the button, it's grounding that pin, and because it's a pull-up resistor, it doesn't matter. And then when I let go, it resets. So that's it. Okay. If you've got any questions, stick them in the comments, and hopefully soon the video processor adapter will arrive, and I can actually start displaying something on the screen. Until then, thanks.